welcome to Big Muddy Mayhem, the podcast where we talk about true crime and bad behavior in the Midwest.
Each week, we'll bring you 2 stories from the heartland that might break your heart, but we hope to entertain you along the way.
I'm Janet O'Brien.
And I'm Tracey Rector.
Hello!
Hi, welcome back, world traveler.
Thank you. I did a cruise. I haven't posted anything on our Facebook page yet, but yes, I just got back yesterday for a whole week. Went with my son and some friends.
And so you went from tropical climates back to where we here in St. Louis are. It was, I believe, -1 the last time I checked the temperature. Mm-hmm. And it's cold, y'all.
It's super cold.
And so wherever you are, we hope that you are warm and safe and ready to just cuddle up and tuck in and listen to stories with us.
Exactly. So, I'm back in the cold again. Mm-hmm. That's okay. The coldest we've been so far this winter, I believe.
Completely.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So super fun. So I think we have some stories today.
We do have stories, and you are going first, right? Diving right back in.
So this was another call-in, and when I say call-in, my child picked it.
I know, I'm excited to hear.
So he's 20, and he reads a lot of stuff. He knows so many things that I don't even know. So he's very interested in things and stuff. And he was like, "Hey, Mom, have you heard of this one?" And I'm like, "No." And I started reading about it. I'm like, "Oh, no, I really didn't know that."
But there's my topic.
There it is. So
nice.
I had to go for it.
Well, so hat tip to
to Patrick.
To Patrick. And I'm excited to hear this story.
So this is about... Did you know let's start over. 1877, there was a St. Louis Commune. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's basically the whole city striked for a few days.
I did not know this at all. Oh my gosh.
Right? Okay.
All right, buckle up, let's go.
So, July of 1877, St. Louis workers took over St. Louis, and a communist party ruled St. Louis from July 22nd to July 28th of 1877.
Holy Moses. No, I did not.
So I'm going to back up a little to kind of explain where this stemmed from, okay? I don't know if our listeners know, but St. Louis is just full of people from other countries. I mean, it was originally a French city. Mm-hmm. There's tons of German immigrants here. So a lot of people ended up here.
The St. Louis flag is sometimes known as like the Three Rivers flag because under like a certain amount of time, right, we were the property of 3 different nations.
Right.
I think like it was like France and Spain and then America, right?
Yeah, pretty much, I think.
Or wait, no, I'm sorry, actually. When we get an editor, we should... hold on, it's the Three Rivers flag because of the Merrimack, Missouri, and Mississippi.
Correct.
But I'm thinking of New Orleans. They had like 3 different periods of rule, like in a short amount of time.
That's also one of Tracy's favorite cities. So.
I know, Sister City.
But anyway, so we're going to back up to 1871 in Paris. So from March 18th to May 28th in 1871 in Paris, France, there was a French revolutionary where they seized power for 2 months, 1 week, and 3 days. 877 people were killed, probably more. 6,454 people were wounded and 187 people missing.
Oh my God.
Napoleon III, a.k.a. Louis Napoleon Bonaparte,
Yeah.
First and only president of the French Second Republic. He was elected in 1848. And he also seized power by force in 1851 when he couldn't be reelected constitutionally.
Right.
So he seized power anyway. He proclaimed himself Emperor of the French and founded the Second Empire.
Okay.
It feels very Star Wars-y there. Starting in 1866, there was a mounting power of Prussia as their prime minister. He was their minister, President Otto Otto von Bismarck. He sought to do a German unification under
Okay.
the Prussian leadership. Napoleon decided he better declare war on them because that was going to be bad. The French army defeated, and the French army ended up being defeated, and Napoleon was captured at Sedan.
Okay.
So when this happened, and Napoleon was dethroned, and the Third Republic was just instituted instead of being voted in, the French National Guard that fought to defend Paris and the working class, they had some radicalism growing with them, and they were just like, you know what? No, you're not just going to enforce some new thing on us without us even picking it. So the National Guard seized control of Paris from March 18th, 1871. They established policies, progressive, anti-religious, self-styled socialism. They believed in separation of church and state, self-policing, remission of rent.
So these are like leftists.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
They wanted to abolish child labor, and they wanted workers to have self-management.
And not just liberals, but like leftists.
Yes,
they are.
Very much.
No.
And various other countries were rebelling pretty much about the same thing. Like Germany did it in the 1840s, and there were some other countries where basically they were fighting against their monarchies and the changes brought on by capitalism. Because including Germany, France, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
How's that going to work out for them?
A lot of them immigrated from France to the U.S. and also from Germany. So there was two different groups kind of fighting the same thing, different countries. And so they ended up moving to St. Louis, Missouri, as it originally was a French city, and there was a large German population
Okay.
there. Okay.
All right. So you can see.
Yeah. So this was called the Paris Commune. When it fell, many were massacred in the streets. And so the people who escaped, that they went to all these other different countries, including the United States.
Okay.
So you have these people who have already tried to do this over there.
Right.
And then they come over here.
And trying.
Yeah, well, and they're like, okay, I'm, new life. This is going to be way much better.
Okay.
But during the 1850s and 60s and 70s, we were going through we were basically... there was a lot of poor people in the United States. The United States was experiencing economic changes. The factories wiped out a whole bunch of artisan classes, forcing workers into industrial work, which was basically like dungeons to them. So it's like, I'm making a shoe. Now I have to work at the shoe factory, and they're going to pay me very little now.
There's an industrial revolution.
Yes.
So like a lot of people are getting wealthy, but there are also a lot of people that are working kind of for next to nothing, and a lot of that is sort of...
They were making money and now they're not, a lot of these... So, it was a big climate change in economics.
Do we know if St. Louis was particularly hard hit at this time?
It was, and I'll get to that.
Okay.
So, unions were still very young, and the working class was weak at the mercy of the emerging capitalist class. Here's an example. In 1850, there was a study of housing in New York, and they found instances of 20 people living in a one room.
Completely.
And up to 300 people living in one house. So
nothing at all like today.
No, not at all. So because of this big climate change, there was a lot of poor, a lot of people lost a bunch of money. And then we go now to the railroad strike of 1877. I know this seems like it's all the way around crazy,
we're
a lot of luck in there, but we're getting there, I promise. So in 1877, major railroads slashed wages up to 50%, despite earning good profits.
Well, so nothing at all like today.
No, not at all. In mid-July of 1877, workers started to walk off their jobs in Martinsburg, West Virginia, and Baltimore from working on trains. The strike just started to move west from town to town. About 1 million railroad workers went on strike that month.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They were tired of starvation wages. Eruptions of violence happened in Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Chicago. And the people in general supported the striking workers. You know, it's like, okay, the big guys are making money, yet you're going to slash our wages 50%?
Right.
No.
And, you know, let's face it, like the people in general, the CEOs of these companies are not their neighbors. They're not the people in their community. Who is in their community, you know, is like the guy that is striking.
Exactly. So July 21st of 1877, the strike ended up reaching East St. Louis, Illinois.
Okay.
East St. Louis is right across the river from St. Louis. On July 22nd, East St. Louis workers, joined by 400 railroad workers in St. Louis, Missouri, voted to stop all railroad transportation passing through the city.
And that's also right over the bridge.
Yes.
Bing, 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 bing. And this is when rail travel is kind of replaced steamboat travel.
Yes.
So this is putting the brakes on everything,
Exactly.
right?
They still let passenger and mail trains go through, but anything else, no. They just wouldn't let it through. St. Louis mayor claimed that 30,000 socialists were attempting to take over the city.
Well, why can't they just protest peacefully?
So
why do they have to shut down the bridges?
So I'm basically, right now, I'm giving you like short version of this, and then I will kind of go step by step on how it happened. On the 22nd, federal troops arrived, yet no violence occurred. Also on the 22nd, the St. Louis branch of the Workmen's Party, known as the WPUCA, elected a committee to lead the strike for the railroad.
Wapuac, yeah.
So there was there ended up being up to 10,000 workers that rallied downtown St. Louis and demanded public works to create jobs for the unemployed, end child labor, and institute an 8-hour workday.
All right. I mean, these all seem like reasonable requests.
Exactly. It evolved into calls to end capitalism and the nationalism of major industries. The strike grew larger as the city workers started to join them. And this ended up becoming the first general strike in the United States.
Fantastic here in St. Louis.
Right? Exactly.
Amazing.
Almost all businesses were closed down. No freight trains were allowed to pass through St. Louis or East St. Louis. Black steamboat and wharf workers joined the strike, along with elevator operators and barbers.
Oh, wow. So you can't get a haircut. You can't go all dressed up and nowhere to go and nowhere to get a haircut if you could get dressed up to go somewhere.
Right. The powers to be thought this was anarchy. The St. Louis sheriff decided to fight the strikers by drafting available men under threats of jailing them.
Oh.
Businessmen ordered their employees to join. 5,000 to 10,000 men were armed with weapons from the state militia and federal arsenals, joined by federal troops.
Wow.
The strike leaders were rounded up and arrested at the headquarters of the WPUSA. Everyone was arrested, including onlookers and journalists. The next day, the strike was crushed in East St. Louis, and the Commune ended. Now, again, I'm going to go back and kind of give you like it just builds and builds and builds.
And I'm sorry again, just so how many days the strike?
It was only like 5 days.
Okay.
It was very short.
Yeah.
Yeah. It went from, I have to write it down, and I already forgot again. It went from July 22nd to July 28th.
Okay.
So that's how it goes.
But still, that's a collective stand.
Right. Now, here's the crazy part. I'm going to put this little aftermath after it was ended.
Okay.
Only months after this whole thing ended. Mm-hmm. The business leaders are like, shit, they could take us over again. We got to do something about that. So, Tracey will know this one. Months after the strike ended, St. Louis businessmen founded an elite private club called the Veiled Prophets. A terrible, terrible, terrible group of people.
That's a story for another podcast.
Yes. They had a celebration, marched through the streets, that the city, and they announced that the city was controlled by the powers that be, not workers, not the unemployed, and not black people.
Oh.
Yeah. This group still exists today. Various daughters who were part of the debutantes, debutantes of the Veiled Prophet Ball, because they have a ball every year, they apologized for participating with white supremacist and anti-labor roots. So,
That was, it was always, there was like a Princess of the Veiled Prophet, and that was like, if you, like the premiere in, Bridgerton, if you are just top,
right,
debutante of the season, then you end up as the Princess at the Veiled Prophet Ball, and this went for years.
We already know this because we're from here, but basically it looks like Klan outfits. I mean, they're veiled because the business leaders don't want you to know who they are. It's kind of terrible. So this is how the strike gathered. July 22nd, the train workers wanted to increase the wages because they got their wages cut. Right. And if they did not, the strike would, happen. 200 members of the WPUSA, they ended up joining, and this was part of their deal. They're like, okay, we're going to write this down, and if they don't accept it, we're going to strike. Whereas the United States government has allied itself on the side of capital and against laborers, therefore resolved that we, the Working Men's Party of the United States, heartily sympathize with the employees of all the railroads in the country who are attempting to secure just an equitable reward for their labor. Resolved that we will stand by them in the most righteous struggle of labor against robbery and oppression through good and evil report to the end of the struggle. And that's from the United States Working Men's Party. The demand was rejected, so at midnight, the strike started in East St. Louis. Within hours, strikers controlled East St. Louis. Nice. July 24th, the movement of the freight and passenger trains were not allowed to pass.
Okay.
Strikers, then they went to the Union Depot where there ended up being like about a total of 3,000 to 4,000 bystanders. I was trying to where's the Union Depot? Because we have
Would
Union
that have
Station.
been Union Station? It was not.
It was not
okay.
in the same
so
spot.
This was over...
I had to look it up. I'm like, where?
Was it on the Missouri side? Though?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's already over here now at this point. So I'm gonna look at the screenshot.
Okay.
Here we go. I pinned it because I actually looked it up. It was between 11th and 12th. 12th is Tucker. And it was on Poplar, which Poplar is now only a block long.
Okay.
But essentially it was like right there.
I know roughly. Yeah. No, I know where you're
right
talking
there.
About. Okay.
So they wouldn't allow the trains to pass. The strikers at the Union Depot, there's a total of 3,000 to 4,000 strikers and onlookers. 400 more strikers arrived on a flat car, and they marched to the Missouri Pacific shops with 2,000 people. Okay,
so a flat car like via the railroad?
Yes.
Like one of the, just a big, where you would normally put like...
A box or whatever. Yep.
Okay.
So the machinist wouldn't strike, but they would stop working in solidarity with the strikers. They convinced the roundhouse workers to also go on strike. Then the troops from the 16th and 19th Infantry arrived from Kansas, Colorado, and the Oklahoma Territory between July 24th and 25th. They were only there to protect federal property, so the strikers were unaffected at that time.
Did they come on rail too? I wonder if that's like that Katy Trail that we were talking about last.
Possibly.
Like Kansas, Texas, Oklahoma.
I mean, they came pretty fast, so I would assume so. They were only there to protect federal property.
Okay.
July 24th, communist leaders started to hold meetings, and they were threatening to burn down the newspaper buildings and march through the streets. That didn't happen, but they threatened it. July 25th, 1,500 people gathered at a marketplace of striking wire and material manufacturing.
Wow. Ooh, that's where you get,
Right. And they marched from St. Louis City Hall to Turner Hall.
Okay.
And that is where the WPUSA committee was having one of their meetings. The men who worked with Laclede gas station came to an agreement with their employers, and so they ended up returning back to work. So it was working, like the strike, like some companies were like, okay, yeah, we're just going to meet your demands because we need you to continue working.
Right.
please don't stop working. The beef, let's see here, what else happened? During the strike, the city was virtually unpoliced. They would try to call other policemen to help with private property. They wouldn't even touch that. So they were kind of holding back to see what was going to happen. So I think they were just kind of holding ground at this point. The beef canners joined the strike. And then the mayor of St. Louis, Henry Overstoles, he warned strikers to not destroy. I
know. I'm sorry. Can we just take a moment? I'm going to need a beat from Mayor Overstoles.
Overstolz. That's his name.
Okay, got it. Which makes it even funnier because now his name looks cooler on graffiti.
Right.
All right. I'm sorry, continue. Let's back up to Mayor Overstoles.
So he warned them not to destroy public property. I mean, how many strikes in the world where they don't mess up the thing? And I'm like, okay.
We might need to steal it one day.
Exactly.
Okay.
Citizens, okay, so when he ended up getting some other guy to start the... It's fine.
All right.
So he ended up getting this guy, I think his last name was Smith,
well, that's no fun.
I know. An awesome last name. This guy organized the Citizens Organization for the Protection of Property. Because, property is way more important than people. Yes!
So it is literally Operation Cop.
Exactly! They got 1,500 men armed. But the next day, by noon of July 26th, they had 10,000 citizens who had joined. So clearly this is like a separation thing.
Right.
Half of the city was like, yeah, the other half's like, oh no,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. 2,000 strikers and loafers.
Well, the Union Loafers, is this where we get the bakery?
I think so. They marched to a manufacturing district and dismantled the Belcher's sugar refinery to prevent 400 workers from returning to work.
Wow. Okay.
After they did that, a lot of the mob left, but this mob still continued to dismantle 40 other factories, including flour mills and
this probably is where,
yeah. 1,000 could not go back. So after they dismantled those factories, 1,000 more people couldn't go back to work because their factories were dismantled.
Mm-hmm.
There was a chair factory that they thought they needed to go do something with, but the chair factory was actually abandoned.
Take several seats? No.
And when the police pushed them away, the factory suspiciously caught on fire, and it also caught the lumber yard on fire that was next door.
No.
So
okay.
Those two things were just totally destroyed. Most of the shops in the city were closed.
Okay.
On July 27th at Union Depot, that's again the train station, they still held strike. The strikers were still being, they had their foot down there and they were trying to make sure that the trains weren't going through. There was still 400 men there. I mean, there were still men there, but then there was 400 men dispatched from that other group and to retake the depot. Interference of the trains stopped. 2,000 men gathered, but they were like, okay, this has gone too far. And so they got 50 mounted police, 500 of the Citizens Guard, and 2 National Guard companies were called, and by the time they showed up to the Union Depot, there's 3,000 people gathered at
Oh,
this
wow.
point. And they were able to break up that group in like 5 minutes.
Holy, wow.
So I know that 18 people died, but it doesn't say how. I have a feeling it involves that. July 28th, the Working Men's Party's meeting was stopped. July 30th, basically the strike was over.
Okay.
They had arrested everybody in the Working Men's Party. August 1st, the strike ended in East St. Louis.
Oh.
So it lasted, but it created a terrible group of people.
It did, but then also, man, there are times in the world where change only kind of comes through.
Right, exactly. I mean,
a collective action.
You gotta do collective action sometime.
Right.
But yeah, it's just, they were really pushing us, and
wow.
And then the catalyst was the whole trains, the train strike, and it just kind of it exploded here.
Everything old is new again, isn't it?
Exactly.
And hearing that a story like this kind of originated in St. Louis is
exactly
fascinating. So, man, if I have a silver lining to take from this story, it's that this came to us from your son.
Yes.
The kids are all right.
Exactly.
They're learning their history.
Exactly.
They're thinking critically.
Yes, absolutely.
The kids are all right.
They really, really are. But that's my story.
Fantastic.
I mean, it was just a little bit of St. Louis history I didn't know anything about.
Amazing.
I mean, now I know where that stupid group of people came from now, too. I had no idea. I'm like, wait, what? Mm-hmm. So... Anyway, do you have a story for me?
I do have a story for you. And my story is also from Missouri this week.
Okay.
Although, really, this is one of those weeks where we are not... Maybe it was because we were in different time zones. But,
right.
But our stories do not necessarily connect. But this does come from Missouri. And we are going today to Camdenton, Missouri.
Ah, okay.
Which is kind of around Lake of the Ozarks. And so we are going to Camdenton, Missouri, and we're going to talk about Clara Rector.
Okay.
Clara Rector, she is born in 1976.
Okay.
Her story is kind of a sad one.
Ah.
So I'm going to start out by showing you a picture of her when she's older.
Oh, okay.
She is, again, this is someone who has had kind of a sad life. She's raised as abandoned by her family early on, so she spends most of her formative years in foster care. She sees some neglect and some abuse there. But she's mostly raised in and around Lake of the Ozarks.
Okay.
She is completely love-starved.
Oh,
The minute that somebody shows her the first bit of affection, and you can see again from her picture, she's pretty,
Yeah, she is.
She's got, she's pretty. And so the minute that she kind of gets attention, which is early in her life, she takes it. She is married by the age of 19. And that's in 1995. And almost a year or so, I guess not even a year or so after that, she and her husband are in a car wreck. He's killed, and
oh no,
and she is pregnant.
Oh.
So she has this child, and she's single mother, kind of just struggling again, love-starved. 1999, love heals all things. She marries her husband Jason. She finds him. And they fall in love. They get married. He adopts the child that she had with her, deceased husband.
Right.
And then they have a couple of more. Mm-hmm. Now they both are struggling kind of with substance abuse. After the death of her first husband, she kind of,
right,
had some tough times.
Sure, absolutely.
But the two of them find love together, and they find sobriety together. They're together for a couple of years. They've got a couple more kids. She's kind of starting to slide back into that old lifestyle. He is not, but she is sneaking out.
Sure.
And they're all going to church together as a family every week and all of that, but she's kind of sneaking out. She's finding a church, and then, like, she kind of finds a local bar. And then she finds Tommy.
Oh, no.
And we are going to, this is Tommy Hope.
Okay.
He's born in 1955.
Oh, a lot older.
Uh-huh. He is buddies with Clara now. He kind of comes from a very similar story. He was the first of 3 kids, lots of neglect. Eventually, all 3 of them go to foster, but Tommy gets out as soon as he's, the first.
Right.
So he's the one that can get out,
Right.
early on. He joins the military. After that, he has some PTSD.
Oh.
And I don't know what years exactly he was in service or like where he served, but he does have some kind of PTSD when he gets out. He comes out of the military and he is kind of just like an odd job guy. He's really handy at a whole bunch of things.
Oh, okay.
He's really affable. People like him. He is really super likable. He's the dude that, like, you've met him 3 times and then you run into him and he's like, oh, let me get you a beer. Like, you know. He has some issues with addiction as well.
Of course.
So when he gets out of the military, he lives in California for a little while and then he moves to Missouri. I know.
Okay, why?
Because it's beautiful. But he moves to Missouri. And he's basically still kind of like handyman dude and meets his people and kind of finds his social circle by being a barfly.
Oh, okay.
Now,
Sure.
one thing that you can say about Missouri is that, like, bar culture is real culture around here.
Yes, it is. Very much so.
Anywhere in the state.
Yes.
Like, big cities, like St. Louis, Kansas City, big town, small town,
Right.
That's where you can go and people just talk to one another.
Exactly.
So he's so kind, he's so friendly, he's beloved by everyone.
Uh-huh.
He and Clara become friends. They bond over having had like similar childhood neglect.
Right.
They bond over trauma from being in foster homes.
Ah.
And they bond over addiction.
Ah, yeah.
They become close. They are certainly partying together. There's kind of a suspicion of more.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know for sure. Now, April 2004.
Okay.
Tommy goes missing.
Oh.
He is missing around the 24th or 25th, maybe.
Okay.
Of that month of April of 24. So
no.
Anyway, on the 28th, a couple of his friends go looking for him.
Uh-oh.
Their names are Brian and Cindy. They're also just people that you know from the bar. But,
of course, yeah.
But you know how it is. If somebody is a daily regular and then you don't see or hear from them and they live alone,
yeah,
someone's going to come and look for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they go and they look for him. They knock on the door. No answer. They've called him. There's no answer. Cindy decides that one of the windows of his apartment, and I'm going to show you the house here.
Okay.
And you'll see. Like, okay, so here is the front of the house.
Right.
And then you can see the window to the side.
Yes, I can.
And he never left that all the way closed. It was always a little bit cracked open, so...
Oh, so the fact that it's closed is kind of like, what's going on?
Well, but it isn't locked.
Oh.
So Cindy is like, well, I'll climb in.
Oh.
And just make sure that everything's okay.
Absolutely.
Cindy climbs in the window. Brian is out on the porch. Brian hears Cindy scream. Tommy is in a pool of blood just outside the kitchen, kind of in between his kitchen and his living room area.
Oh, my God.
He is dead.
Ugh.
Now, Cindy and Tommy call for help, but from a friend's phone that's a half a mile away.
Okay.
They go a half a mile down the road.
Okay.
and they call for help and say, like, hey, our friend is dead, da-da-da. Officers arrive on the scene. Yep, he's dead. Cause of death seems to be either stab wounds to the chest or a slash across his neck with a knife. But he's been dead for a few days. And the question everyone has is, why Tommy?
Right, because he's a super nice guy.
He's a super nice guy. He's so well loved. So there are a few different theories. Number one, his friend Cindy that found the body. Mm-hmm. Well, Tommy had addiction problems. There's a bottle of pills in his pocket. They are prescribed to Cindy.
Oh, that's interesting.
Now, they're her prescription. And also, Cindy, I should mention, Cindy and Tommy used to date. And they also used to live together.
Yeah, well, small town, Missouri.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
exactly.
I'm not really.
There's only so much to go around. Right?
I mean, I'm surprised, but I'm not really that surprised.
Number two, Cindy says that Tommy owed some money to a drug dealer named Jeff.
Okay.
So she's like, well, I'm worried maybe it was something that, that it had to do with like a drug debt. Clara, she admits that she was with Tommy a few days ago and that they were using together.
Ah, okay.
But that they had been intimate.
Okay.
But she wasn't, like, I don't know anything about this.
Okay.
So they investigate all of these things. So the drug dealer, Jeff, there's no evidence there. It turns out that Tommy did owe him drug money. Mm-hmm. Tommy owed him $35 for pot.
Oh, whatever. No.
This is not something that you murder someone over in 2004.
No, you're like, yeah, I'm annoyed, but I'm annoyed. Right.
The pill bottle, Cindy and Tommy did party together. They were like friends and stuff. And so, like, yes, it was probably her prescription. Yes, she gave it to him.
Right.
But it wasn't anything nefarious. It was just like, I gave my messy ex these.
Right.
Yeah. So Clara and Tommy, or Clara and Jason, Clara and her husband, they were home together.
Oh.
They were with the kids the night that they think Tommy was murdered.
Oh.
So the two of them, they each have an alibi. They are each other's alibi. But they were at home together, and then they got up the next morning and they went to church, and then they came home to watch football games. So anyway, it ended up that they have an alibi for one another.
Oh, okay.
For like 36 hours. Because, it was just us.
Right.
And on one hand, you think, okay, if the only person that can vouch for you is this other person that might also be a suspect. But, I mean, how many of us, like, if you're in a couple, like, where were you Saturday night? Well, I was at home with my...
Right.
What'd you guys do? Well, we watched the football game and we went to bed. I mean,
right.
Like, unless your life is more exciting than mine, the idea that two people were just home alone together for overnight is not unbelievable.
No, right.
So Tommy's case becomes a cold case.
Oh.
It is the very first cold case, or the only cold case in Camdenton, Missouri.
Wow.
Because it's a very, very small town.
Right.
Clara, she is devastated at the loss of her friend. Mm-hmm. She goes back to church. She sees the light. She, like, renews herself to just, like, I'm not going to go out and party anymore. I'm going to, like, be a better mom. I'm going to be a better wife.
Okay.
She is known by everyone in the community to be this wonderful wife and mother. She's a pillar of the community. Her mother-in-law is like, oh my gosh, she would come over. She would plant my garden. She would wash my windows.
Okay. I feel suspicious of what you're telling me, but go on.
You and I are of the same cloth, Janet. So she is an example of grace to like everyone around her.
Of course.
2014,
Okay.
Clara's pastor, Jerry Sousley, calls the police.
Oh. I have a feeling I know where this is going. Keep going.
He says that Clara's been stalking him.
What?
She has been leaving notes on his windshield. She's been very involved with the church and also like confiding a lot in her pastor. She has been leaving notes on his windshield. She left a notebook full of basically like pastor fanfic sex stories.
Oh no.
In the church after service one week. And just like stories that he says are completely fictitious that like talk about all of the hot and heavy encounters that they have had.
Oh my God.
So while they are talking to him about the stalking charges, he also is like, oh, you know what? There's this other thing where when she first started coming to talk to me a few years ago, she told me about stabbing a guy to death back in 2004.
Oh no.
He has never mentioned this to anyone. So, anyway, this has been like about 9 years. Clara made advances towards him finally, like physically kind of tried to seal the deal. According to Pastor Sousley, he's turned them down. He said this destroys churches, this destroys families.
Right.
And when he does, she just kind of doubles her efforts.
Oh no.
So that's when he calls the police. Not when she confessed to murdering a man, but when this is becoming personally inconvenient to him.
Nothing about, oh, maybe she stabbed someone. I don't know.
Literally sipping my tea right now. Like,
exactly.
So they decide they can't get Clara on hearsay for the murder, but they can get her for stalking.
Okay.
So she's arrested, and sources on this were a little bit like, nothing really corroborated everything else. So one thing did say that she was arrested on a Sunday, and she and her husband are arrested on separate days.
What?
So I think that the one said she was arrested on a Sunday, so I don't know whether this is true or not, but they say that they arrested her like on a Sunday because she came to church and they were able to like block the doors and like bring her out.
Wow.
Anyway, so she's arrested on April 24th of 2013, which is 9 years to the day from Tommy's murder.
Wow.
She almost immediately, once in custody, confesses to the murder.
Wow.
She went to Tommy's house. She went there for drugs. And it was either that she was going to, like, buy cocaine from him, or else, more likely, it sounds as though he wasn't really a dealer. He was just a guy that, like, always bought drugs so that he would have people to hang around with him and do the drugs. So she comes over because he says he's got cocaine. She sneaks out of the house away from her husband and her kids. She comes over to his house. He doesn't have any cocaine because he's done all or most of the cocaine.
Sure.
And she stabs him with a butcher knife and slashes his throat.
What?
She goes home. Her husband helps her get rid of the evidence.
Oh my God.
And is like, we're just never going to talk about this again.
Wow.
So he's arrested the next day for his part in it. Mm-hmm. In addition to the false alibi and like helping her get rid of that.
Right.
In the stalking case, remember that sexually explicit pastor fanfic notebook?
Yes.
He apparently ended up with custody. The husband ended up with custody of the notebook. And he threw it away at a place called... If you're drinking, put your drink down. He disposes of the pastor fanfic notebook at the Hillbilly Fairgrounds in Laurie, Missouri. Where no one will ever find it. Except for some boys who are like, this is the hottest story I've ever read. I'm 13, I'm working the Ferris wheel at the Hillbilly Fairgrounds.
Oh my God.
And this is the sexiest thing that's ever happened. And he's a pastor? But back to Clara.
Okay.
Anyway, her friends, her family, her mother-in-law, like I said, everyone were and still remain very sympathetic and supportive of her. One of my big sources for this episode is that if you are more a visual person, there's an episode of Snapped.
Okay.
That focuses on this story. It's season 29, episode 15. Again, that's Snapped, season 29, episode 15. Clara Rector. And so Snapped is pretty sympathetic to her as well. Jason Rector, her husband, he was arrested, well, not arrested, but he was released because for his lower charges, the statute of limitations had been exceeded.
Oh, yeah.
So he did not serve time, and as far as I know, I think they're still married, and he's still, like, raising the kids. And Clara was sentenced to 15 years.
Oh, my God.
And she is up for parole this month.
Wow. That is crazy.
Yeah, so that is the story of Clara. I will say, too, that the headline on one of the first stories I found about this, and I picked this story because I wanted to do my What's Nice.
Yes.
From here. So listen to the rest of the episode. But I was like, wait. The first story I read, it looked like she had killed the pastor, and I'm like, her name was Rector, and she killed a pastor.
No, wrong.
So that's when I went down the rabbit hole, and that is how we got to the story of Clara Rector.
Well, that was a great story. That really is terrible that she killed a nice guy.
She did. Tommy seemed like he really was.
I mean, yeah, he was an addict, but he was still nice, and everybody liked him, and that just sucks, you know.
Every neighborhood bar probably has a neighborhood barfly that you're like, oh, he was the nicest dude.
Exactly. Well, I think this is where we're going to take a break.
We are going to take a break, and then we'll be right back to talk about What's Nice.
We'll be back with What's Nice.
If you enjoy getting muddy with us, here are some ways that you can help support the podcast. Is there a topic that you'd love to hear us discuss? A story that you're dying to hear us tell? Send us suggestions at bigmuddymayhem@gmail.com. We'd love to hear what you'd like to hear us get muddy about. Like and subscribe to the podcast on the platform where you're listening. And of course, a good review will help us reach new listeners. If you are listening on YouTube, please leave a comment in the comments section so we can have a discussion. Join our Facebook group where we can talk about the episodes and hear all of your suggestions there as well. And of course, tell your friends.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, Janet.
So, we're going to talk about what's nice for both of ours.
We are ready to talk about what's nice.
Just FYI, guys, this is episode 13.
I know.
13. I cannot believe we're this far ahead with our episodes. It's really awesome. So, my what's nice is something that Tracy's going to know. And she might even know more information than I do. But I picked it.
I don't know much.
We'll see. So we were talking about St. Louis, so, I have to pick a thing in St. Louis.
I do love St. Louis.
What we were talking about earlier was the Union Depot, right?
Oh, right.
Which was between 11th and 12th on Poplar. Doesn't exist there anymore. However, there is a place that does exist that might have opened and had its first train pull into it on September 1st of 1894. And that would be the lovely St. Louis Union Station.
Oh, St. Louis Union Station is beautiful. I wish I knew more about it, but
It's such a pretty place.
Friend of the pod, Justin, would be able
Exactly.
to fill in.
So it saw some of the highest traffic for the 1904 World's Fair and for World War II. A day's regular capacity back in the day was 10,000.
Oh, wow.
Like just for one day.
I know. Oh, man.
The Grand Hall, which I don't need to show a picture to Tracy because she's been there several
It's so
times.
beautiful.
It's like a half barrel. It's huge. It's a 65-foot barrel vaulted ceiling. It used to have a 2-ton wrought iron chandelier with 350 bulbs in it. The platform had basically a steel and glass wall, and it was decorated with ornamented iron gates.
Okay.
During World War II, we ended up taking the chandelier and the midway wall and sacrificed it for war efforts. There used to be, there still is a hotel there, but back then there was a 75-room hotel off the Grand Hall. It had simple rooms with a bed and a table, and it had a communal bathroom.
Still a very nice hotel.
Still a very nice hotel. And then the final passenger train, because the Union Station, it was used for trains up until October 31st, 1978. That was when the last train departed from Union Station. Now, it sat vacant for a little while, and then in the early 80s, we're like, this is a beautiful building. We got to do something with it. And this is the part I remember very well.
Right. It was like a mall, right?
Exactly.
They turned it, there was a fudge factory.
Yes. So August of 1985, Union Station reopened as a mall with retail shops, event spaces, and restaurants. Fun fact.
Go on.
In 1985, I was a freshman in high school. I was a marching band geek.
Oh, fun!
And they wanted to try to create the largest marching band. They were trying to hit a world record. We didn't hit it. But basically they got all of the St. Louis people in high schools in a marching band, and we're all going to play one song.
What was it?
I don't remember because it was August in 1985.
In my head, it's Stars and Stripes Forever. Da, 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 da.
It might have been. I was trying not to pass out. They were walking around with wagons full of bags of ice, and they were handing us water bottles.
No!
August,
because
in a
it's
full-on
terrible.
marching band outfit, you're trying to not pass out. It was so hot.
Did you have the hat?
Oh yeah. I promise to post a picture of me in a marching band uniform.
All right, everyone, hold her to this because I need to see it.
Including my Uncle Cliff, because it's St. Louis.
Was he in the band too?
No, he actually built the model for what they were going to do to Union Station before they reopened it in 1985. So it was like that for a long time. I worked pretty much across the street. I would go over there and get food at lunch. We would just go hang out at Union Station. It was a lot of fun. So the mall, as all malls have, they kind of died out.
Malls are not really much of a thing anymore.
No, they're not. So the current reincarnation is the Grand Hall still has the original terrazzo floor. It has green glazed terracotta bricks, stained glass windows, and wooden carpentry details. That's all original from when it opened.
And it's very, it is vibrant. There's a lot.
It's so pretty.
Yeah.
There's an archway, when you enter through the front door. If you stand on one end of the archway and somebody stands to the other, you can basically whisper to them.
The whispering arch, yes.
Yes, and you can totally talk to each other. It's so much fun. Every day at 5 p.m., if you go hang out in the Grand Hall, there's a 3D light show, which I've seen. It's so fun.
They are beautiful. And the Grand Hall is gorgeous anytime.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It was set to music, and it basically projects like the history of Union Station. It's just like a fun little 3D movie to watch.
They have a few different ones too. Like one will be about the history of baseball in St. Louis, and one is like about the history of trains.
Oh,
and
that's
one is
cool.
So it's, I mean, the Grand Hall, like I said, is worth a visit at any point in time. But if you're there when one of those light shows are there, it's free.
Yeah, it is.
You know, and like, oh, it's worth seeing. It's so cool in a beautiful space that is gorgeous without anything extra, but this just makes it so much more fun. I'm sorry, I know. I'm gushing about St. Louis.
The lobby of the Grand Hall, it has a full lounge bar and restaurant. Mm-hmm. There is a fire and light show that happens in the small lake back of the old depot part. St. Louis Union Station Hotel is a AAA 4-diamond hotel. It has 539 rooms and suites. There's a 200-foot St. Louis wheel. It's basically a big Ferris wheel.
Right.
It has 42 enclosed gondolas, and each can set up to 8 people. I don't know. I've been on that. I don't see it seating 8 people.
I have to admit, I love St. Louis. I think that Union Station is beautiful. That hotel is gorgeous.
Yeah.
I have not and probably will not ever get on the Ferris wheel just because, like, Ferris wheels are not my thing.
Gotcha. No, I've been on it once.
I've been up in the arch once, and that was enough for me. I just like small spaces and high spaces are not my jam. So,
they also have...
I'll hold your coat. I'll meet you in the bar. I've watched 3 shows by now.
Exactly. During the holidays, they actually have a Polar Express train ride. It just goes one way, basically goes to the river, and then turns around and comes back. And it's for kids. It's a lot of fun. It's
not just for kids, Janet. Have I told you that I've been on that?
Oh, have you? Okay. I've been on a night one, but they didn't do the Polar Express.
I have been on the Polar Express ride with Ryder and Justin.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it was perfectly beautiful. The hot chocolate was really delicious. The story is a really heartwarming story. I may have cried.
They also have a pop-up Christmas bar at the train shed. And the former retail space is now the St. Louis Aquarium.
Which is also, really nice.
The aquarium has 120,000 square feet. It houses thousands of aquatic species from rivers and oceans. Mm-hmm. And then the restaurants, the list of restaurants at Union Station. We have the Pitch Athletic Club and Tavern, never been. Mm-hmm. St. Louis Union Station Soda Fountain, still haven't been. Train Shed, I've been. 1894 Cafe, have not been. They have a cookies and cupcakes place. They have a taco container, which is outside. It's like basically a
food truck.
A food truck, yeah. They also have the Grand Hall, which I mentioned. Then you have Landry's Seafood House, and then the Station Grill. Mm-hmm. So if you are coming into town and you want to do some touristy things, Union Station is definitely a place to go. It is made for kids and adults, and it's very, very nice. Lots
of options for food, and like I said, the Grand Hall, whether you're a kid or adult, whatever you're there for, definitely, like, it's just, it's so beautiful, and it's worth at least, a stop by.
But and that's my what's nice.
There's so much nice there. There's so much nice at Union Station. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I have a little bit of what's nice from Camdenton, Missouri.
Okay.
Which this is a little bit harder to to put together, but I think that we have done it. Like I said, I chose my story this week. This sounds terrible, but I found this restaurant first. And then I was like, where is it? Because it's in the middle of Camdenton, Missouri.
Right.
Kind of like nowhere. And I'm like, please tell me that there was a crime here. And then I found one.
Great.
But this restaurant is a Polynesian and Chinese American restaurant called Chinatown.
Okay.
It is super simple decor. they have all kinds of. They've been there like the current owners, Ki Long and Mei Kor, have been there since 2009.
Okay.
They do kind of traditional Chinese American dishes, but they also are known for their tiki drinks.
Oh, nice.
So they do all of these like old classic like rum runners and zombie punch and all of that.
Nice.
And they have vintage mugs and cups to match.
Okay.
So you kind of I'm sorry, this is a visual, like this is an audio medium, but you're going to have to check the show notes to see these pictures, to see how cool this is. It looks and feels like a time machine.
Oh, wow.
So, Janet, I am just going to
ready.
show you a few pictures.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh, those are
Can you tell the listeners a little?
Okay, so they have some of the food in a wooden, like, plate. The drinks, they have, like, basically what you consider a regular tiki drink, the brown one. But then they have these bowl drinks, and it has clearly, like, Polynesian lady, and she's waving, and it's white and green on. It's very, very.
It's
pretty.
meant to be shared, like that
Yes.
is.
Oh yeah, and it's got the little umbrellas in it, of course.
And so the sign has got like kind of a mansard roof and
Yes.
like a yellow, a yellow sort of screen with the red tile and all of that. And the food actually does look pretty good. I'm looking at this.
Oh yeah, no, that looks great.
I'm looking
I'd
at
eat there.
this kind of like.
Yeah, it just looks like some fried rice that might be. Well, no, that's white rice. You got your dumplings and your.
Sweet and sour chicken
Yes.
kind of looking thing. Yeah.
And fried wontons or whatever those are.
And
Possibly. What are the other things called? The fried wontons. The other one is crab rangoon.
yeah, so it's like it is. It's all kind of dumplings, and then they the little bowl that the wooden bowl. It comes with kind of a wooden charcoal grill that you put like picks on sticks.
Oh, that is so neat! Wow.
Kind of over the top, and you do your own almost like.
You're cooking your own food.
Yeah,
almost.
your own little barbecue.
Nice. Well,
Anyway,
that's awesome.
So we are putting this on our ever-growing list of Big Muddy Food Trips.
Yes.
Please subscribe to our Patreon. Janet and I need to go so many places and eat so many things.
Right.
But that is what I've got from Camdenton, Missouri.
Awesome.
If you can't run off on a cruise, you can at least go to middle of Missouri and you can have like some kind of Polynesian chicken and also have a Mai Tai.
Nice.
And so my sources today were from, for my main story, they were from a TV episode of Snapped,
Okay.
the Kansas City Star, and dailymail.uk. And my source for my What's Nice here is from the ColumbiaTribune.com.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, my sources today are basically Wikipedia, and we have jacobn.com. That had a lot of like more detailed information. And then of course my What's Nice is just from unionstation.com.
Fantastic.
So,
All right. Well, welcome back.
thank you.
It was nice to get back on a frosty evening and get muddy and
Exactly.
tell a couple of stories. And I think now is when we remind our listeners that you, as always, need to stay Midwest nice.
Stay Midwest nice.